Hey folks, for today's video, I thought it would be kind of fun to talk about some brands that we don't see anymore. Brands that have been discontinued for one reason or another. And I will start off by saying that this will be at least one of 2 or 3 videos because there's a lot of different brands that I could explore, and there's a lot of brands that are like more like Canadian and UK based that I need to kind of dig into more. I did leave out Coastal Scents because LS actually just did a deep dive on Coastal Scents, like just Coastal Scents. So I will leave a link to her video in the description below because she's actually been doing like a series on like deep dives, just origin stories of brands. So definitely go check out Elle's videos, specifically the Coastal Scents one, because that is a recently discontinued brand that I had a couple people ask me to cover, and I was like, well, Elle already did such a good job of doing that, so like I'll just direct you to her video. But today's video, we are going to dig into 4 brands that I have done a little bit of research about, 4 brands that I have used in the past, brands that a lot of people just totally forgot about, like completely forgot about. It is funny thinking about brands that have just like escaped the collective internet brain space because of like time that has passed. But there is one that we're going to talk about that was more recent and a very short-lived brand that you probably forgot about, because I did. But before we jump into all of that, I would like to say that today's video is sponsored once again by Hellofresh. Let's jump right into it. Today's video is sponsored by Hellofresh. Here's how all of you out there watching can get seasonal, tasty recipes with fresh, pre-measured ingredients delivered right to your front door with HelloFresh, America's #1 meal kit, making cooking at home fun, easy, and affordable. Tonight, Josh and I made ourselves some cheeseburgers with garlic home fries. We were very excited to get burgers in this week's box, but with some different kinds of toppings than we would usually use. We're usually very boring with sauces, so mixing it up is always fun. HelloFresh has definitely broadened our creativity when it comes to flavors and recipes, which it can also do for you within your own food preferences. Plus, since every box is packed with fresh and seasonal produce sourced directly from farmers, you know you're cooking with some of the best stuff, and so you get some really nice, delicious meals with good produce. The website is super easy to use. You can pick your meal preferences, you can change your numbers of meals, and if you need to skip a week because you're going out of town, no problem. Just a few clicks and you can make any changes to your delivery you need. HelloFresh offers 50 menu and market items each week, including ready-to-eat salads, sandwiches, and soups. So for all of you who are going back to school out there, it's a pretty good option for you. And you can save up to 30% in cost by using HelloFresh versus regular grocery shopping. And speaking of grocery shopping, lately it has kind of been a chore, and even though we always write out our grocery list during the week, we'll inevitably need one thing that we forgot, or we thought we had enough pasta when actually we didn't, or my personal favorite, we forgot when we bought the hamburger buns and failed to realize that they went bad. HelloFresh eliminates all of those problems by sending you exactly what you need in the exact amount you'll need. No more guessing, do we have enough butter, or how long has this chicken been out of the freezer? Everything is delivered to you on ice, fresh, right to your front door, and ready to cook. Now raise your hand if you also feel guilty throwing away food. Besides the money it wastes, food waste is a huge problem in the US. Each day about 1 pound of food per person is wasted, so being able to use literally everything in each meal makes me feel so much better about cooking and about how little I'm wasting. Plus, I didn't have to buy a large container of sour cream that I definitely won't finish by the time it goes bad. After all, HelloFresh's carbon footprint is 25% less than that of meals made from traditional store-bought groceries because of packaging, waste, and transportation. So if this sounds good to you and you'd like to try out HelloFresh for yourself, go to HelloFresh.com and use code ABBYW14 to get 14 free meals, including free shipping. If you've been wanting to try a meal kit, now is a great time to try HelloFresh. Again, that's HelloFresh.com, and make sure to use code ABBYW14 to get 14 free meals with free shipping. Thank you so much to HelloFresh for sponsoring today's video, and let's get right back to the video. Thank you, Hellofresh, for sponsoring today's video. I hope you guys enjoyed the recipe I included. So links down below, check it out. Very helpful for my channel if you guys go check out the links for my sponsors. So thanks, Hellofresh, once again. So let's just jump right into the brands that we're going to talk about. First is a brand that was a UK-based brand that I owned one product from. It was a short-lived brand called Dainty Doll. Originally, it was launched in 2008, and it was a brand launched by Nicola Roberts of Girls Aloud, a girl group in the UK. And from what I remember, I didn't really listen to Girls Aloud. I just saw that this product and I saw that this brand had like contours and bronzers that were like good for very pale, like ginger redhead complexion people who had very little pigment in their skin. Because at the time, back in 2008, there weren't really a lot of like bronzer kind of things for really any sort of like wide range of skin tone, whether it was darker or lighter. And so I remember I got this blush in a swap from a friend of mine, from my friend Lena, and we did a makeup swap. I sent her some stuff from the US and she sent me some stuff from the UK, and it was this Dainty Doll blusher in Money Talks. And I still say blusher even though we don't even use the term blusher here. It's a blush. It was a blush. Dainty Doll blusher in Money Talks. Why did I even need to look? I knew it was Money Talks. And this is a makeup brand by Nicola Roberts, who used to be in... Is she still in Girls Aloud? I don't really know. It's like a taupe pink color for contouring. And it is perfect for contouring. I can't use bronzers because I'm pale and like pink toned and bronzers don't work. This is amazing for that. It looks so natural and it's lovely. But it was a kind of taupey, pinky toned blush that was very specifically made as like a contour shade for very, very fair people. This brand was only around for like 5 years. They ended in 2013, but I very distinctly remember the blushes and the complexion products. They went lighter than a lot of the brands at the time, because when you had like drugstore brands in the US and in the UK, like Revlon or Bourjois, you didn't have the range of complexion products in any direction. You kind of had a lot of the mid-range stuff. So you had a lot of stuff that went from like light to tan or light to like medium, but you didn't have like the fairest of the fair or the deepest of the deep. I do remember that this was kind of after Nicola Roberts strayed away from like self-tanning, because from what I remember, she used to self-tan a lot. She looked very, very orange. This was very much like a thing in the UK, still is actually, and she stopped doing that and she embraced her natural skin tone, which was like, she was a ginger. She was very fair, very freckled. And so she created a line that she could use and that she would be able to have everything that she wanted to use in the entire line. But yeah, they were only around for 5 years and I owned a product. I think there were 3 blushes. It was a very small line. Like, it was a very niche, small line, not very wide reaching. It was very specific, but I do remember the packaging being very cute, very kind of like classic looking, minimalist, but also kind of like vintage cutesy kind of stuff. I used the heck out of that bronzer, blush, contour. I used the heck out of that powder on my face. Like, that was the contour shade I used before I discovered NYX's taupe blush. Like, if you go back and look at old videos on my channel, that is a blush I was using specifically to contour my face with my MAC 109 brush. Flashback. Dainty Doll was definitely a brand that I think a lot of people didn't know about, a lot of people didn't realize existed, especially here in the US. The only reason I knew about it was because I followed a lot of UK-based bloggers and vloggers at the time, like beauty vloggers. I only knew about this because of them, and if I had just been following US-based beauty channels, I would not have known. I do remember this, and I had it for a long time. Did I pan it? I feel like I did. I feel like I panned it and then it broke. That happens so often. Like, there's so many times when I've panned something and then I can't finish it because it just gets so fragile after a while and it just breaks apart and then I can't repress it. Like, who else has that struggle? Like, that's happened to me with so many highlighters. So yeah, Dainty Doll, that was a thing. Remember that? Probably not. I'm drinking the new flavor of LaCroix, Guava Sao Paulo. So tasty. Oh my God. Oh my God. It's so good. I love it. Okay, next. NYC. Y'all remember NYC makeup? They had that at Target. They had it at Rite Aid. They had it at Fred Meyer. Fred Meyer is like Kroger if you're not from the West Coast, but very specifically remember it at Target and Rite Aid. But NYC was similar in price range to like Elf or Wet n Wild. It was like NYC and Wet n Wild were like the cheap brands of the drugstore back in the day. And I remember I owned the NYC Sunny bronzer because it was one of the only bronzers you can find in the drugstore that was actually good and wasn't like completely orange, even though it was still very orange. But it had like the plastickiest packaging. It had a little sun on it. It was very cute. And I had this, I owned this, I used this a lot when I had it. And it was so inexpensive. It was like $3, but they also were very well known for their mascara and their eyeliner. Oh my gosh, I remember the NYC eyeliner. I had it, my sister had it. So many people in the beauty community in like the early 2010s were obsessed with this eyeliner because it was so inexpensive. It was like, again, $3. It was so cheap. Their mascara, again, so cheap. I think there was nail polish too. There's not a lot of information about NYC discontinuing, but I believe it was like back in like 2016, 2017 when they slowly faded out everything from retailers, and there really isn't much story as to what happened with NYC. But the funniest thing is whenever people ask about NYC, they're like, oh, you mean NYX? It's like, no, this is New York Color makeup. This is not NYX. This is not NYC Cosmetics. This is New York Color makeup. It feels like like the Mandela effect sometimes when it's like, oh, you mean NYX? No, there was a brand. There was a brand called NYC. I remember it. You remember it, hopefully. But I did actually find a video from a creator, Starting Something Beautiful, who put out a video last year called What Happened to NYC Cosmetics. And it's like a good 12-minute video. She kind of talks about the products, deep dives into it. So I'll leave a link to her video below as well, because I did not find a lot of information about NYC. And it's kind of sad because like it was popular. It was popular. Like I had it. It was the Sunny bronzer was like a must-have. And it's so funny thinking about it, how it just doesn't exist anymore. It's just gone. NYC. Oh man. Yeah, there was some threads on Reddit about it that I found where people were asking about like, does it exist anymore? Is it on any websites? Did it just disappear? Like it kind of just disappeared. So sad, honestly. Just thinking about brands just disappearing. Okay, we're halfway there. Next, we're going to talk about Flesh makeup, cosmetics, Flesh Beauty. Is that what they were called? Do you guys remember Flesh? It was like Revlon's answer to Fenty. It was Revlon's like cool sub-brand that like all the names were really edgy and stuff. Like the foundation was called like the Firm Flesh Thick Stick, which was just the cringiest thing I've ever heard. I anti-hauled this. This whole like Flesh thing from Revlon, because it's Revlon, it's the cringiest thing. I can't handle it. Literally, it came out in 2018. Like, this is a new brand. This did not exist for more than a couple of years. My sister bought the Firm Flesh Thick Stick once from Ulta, but I found some information last year that they had completely phased out of Ulta's and they had gone to what they called a direct-to-consumer model, which sounds really suspicious. But I couldn't really find much else about it because it's like, wait, direct-to-consumer sounds like a pyramid scheme? Am I wrong that sounds like a pyramid scheme? It's still listed on something called Bulk Apothecary and then like Amazon. There's really nothing else where you can find it. Yeah, it only lasted for 2 years. Back in May of 2020, Flesh was quietly dropped from Ulta, its exclusive retail partner. The owner left the brand like in April of 2019. It kind of just, again, faded away. Like they just kind of gave up after 1.5 years and they're like, okay, this was an experiment, now what? And they just stopped. And I don't think that they really kind of hit the market at the right time. And the names were such a weird choice. Like everything was very suggestive. Do you guys remember the Flesh? It was like Flesh Pot, Ripe Flesh. It was just all very gross sounding. Everything had flesh in the title. The names just kind of made you blush, but in not a good way. It was just kind of like, it's kind of weird. Like, Flesh? Really? Flesh? It could have been a cool thing because from what I remember, the actual products themselves were not bad. When the reviews came in and people were like, I did a full face of Flesh Beauty, the products were not bad. It was just a marketing blunder that never really kind of fixed itself. And after 2 years, they were just like, all right, well, we tried. So, shortest lived makeup brand that I can remember in recent history. Like Flesh Beauty was just like, okay, hi, goodbye. Like flash in the pan, just gone so quickly. And it didn't help that like when people started talking about the products, it was just like, oh, here's this like new edgy kind of named product. People used it in a video and then they just stopped. It wasn't something that people kept in their collection as like a go-to product. So that also didn't help that people were making these videos like right all at the same time when the brand was released, and then never again. Like I never saw anybody mention Flesh after that, after the initial like shock factor of the brand release. So not surprised that that didn't last very long either. Last but not least, the brand that most of you asked me to talk about, OCC, otherwise known as Obsessive Compulsive Cosmetics. I owned a handful of things from OCC Cosmetics, which now that I say it, OCC, Obsessive Compulsive Cosmetics, weird name. And the brand actually got a lot of flack for the name over the years, because it's called Obsessive Compulsive Cosmetics. So rightfully so. I did read that the brand owner actually said that he had OCD and he kind of used this as like kind of a tongue-in-cheek like way of talking about it. Whether it came across that way remains to be seen. But OCC was known for their lip tars, and I still have, I think, one of their glitters. Like, I think it's called like Disco Ball or Mirror Ball or something. It's a holographic glitter. But their lip tars were all the rage. OCC had all the weird colors, all the weird lip colors, super pigmented, the most obnoxious product to apply. Like, I will say, I owned 3 or 4 lip tars. I hated them because you needed a teeny tiny brush and you needed to use the smallest amount of product to actually apply to your lips. So, in theory, they were good value, but like the messiest thing to use and the most tedious and time-consuming thing to use because you had to use the smallest amount of product and then spread it all across your lips. It was so obnoxious. But OCC closed back, I believe, in 2018 or shortly there before that. OCC was in Sephora for a short amount of time. It wasn't in there for very long, but from what I have found, there's an article here on Vox titled "Sephora's Lawsuit with OCC is a Staggering Case Study in How Beauty Products Are Sold." From the information gathered here, OCC shuttered its website in 2018, and then the owner confirmed that they went out of business. And there was a lawsuit actually going back to 2015 with Sephora. There's some legal documents from 2015 and 2016, which gives you like a kind of an incomplete picture of the whole thing. OCC and Sephora signed a contract in 2012 stating that the retailer, Sephora, would sell the brand's products and that OCC would be 100% responsible for the cost of the fixtures, like the end caps and everything. And apparently this is a pretty common practice. Like, this isn't that uncommon. OCC then alleged in the suit that it entered into a verbal agreement with Sephora to alter the original contract in 2 ways. First, that Sephora would become OCC's exclusive brick-and-mortar retailer, with the understanding that it would place enough orders to make up for the ones OCC would have to decline from other retailers. And also, Sephora was supposedly going to help defray the cost of the fixtures by contributing 50%, since it supposedly wanted to increase the number of stores selling OCC, which would then necessitate building more fixtures. OCC alleged in the suit that Sephora reneged on these oral agreements by not placing more orders and not helping to pay for fixtures. Sephora argued that it was a moot point because the original contract stipulated that the contract could only be modified in writing, and therefore the suit should be thrown out. But from what I gathered, OCC and Sephora never really came to a clear sort of agreement that both of them were on board for, and OCC could not keep up with everything that Sephora expected them to, as far as like keeping all the fixtures like finished, keeping them stocked, keeping their products in the stores. Because I remember when I would go into Sephora and see the OCC little end things, they were never full. They were always empty. They were always sad, empty, messy. So they just shuttered their doors and ceased to exist at a certain point, which technically was, what year did they actually close their doors? Yeah, 2018 was when they finally closed their doors. And so they were just never able to make back all that money that they lost. At the time when they were kind of at their peak, they were one of the only brands where you could find these like cool, edgy lip colors in a formula that was different. But this was also kind of the pre-days of matte liquid lipsticks. You weren't having brands coming out with these super full coverage, dry down matte liquid lipsticks. And lip tars were kind of, it was the precursor to that because they were very full coverage and they were very kind of different, cool colors, but they were not transfer proof. They were not something that lasted all day. They were very pigmented and you didn't need a lot of them, but they did not last on your lips. They bled into my lip lines so terribly. And that's really all OCC was known for. Like they had some like color concentrates, like cheek products and then lip liners, but their lip tars were what really got them to be big. And even without the Sephora lawsuit and like the money bad business dealings, I don't think that the lip tars would really hold up in today's makeup world because of how difficult they were to use and how big like the market is and how so many brands are coming out with similar colors that OCC originally kind of had like in their bag. They're like, we're the brand that does these colors. But then you had a ton of indie brands coming out with these like liquid lipstick formulas that were comfortable and interesting colors and easier to use and not annoying and not messy. And I don't think that OCC would even still exist now, today, if the Sephora thing hadn't happened. They might not have closed back in 2018, but I feel like that the pandemic probably would have at least like would have been the nail in the coffin for them. You know, it's interesting thinking about like how much the makeup industry has changed in the last 10 years, looking at these brands that were so short-lived and brands that were around for a long time. Like OCC was from like 2004 to 2018. So they were around for 14 years. And Dainty Doll was like 6 years. Flesh was 2. And NYC, I don't even know how long it was around for. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Like I said, I will leave links to some videos and articles in the description down below that go even more in detail. And then specifically LS's video about Coastal Scents. I didn't want to like do a video so soon after her video. I'll probably include it in a later one of these videos because I want to do at least another one talking about more discontinued brands because there's more and there's more things. I got to just dig into brands that were maybe even like predating my existence and predating like my makeup usage. Some people mentioned like Jordana, Jane, Gemma Kidd. I had mentioned Tarina Tarantino in a Makeup Archives video. So I do have a growing list of brands to talk about. So if you have any other discontinued brands that you would like me to talk about, please leave them in the comments down below. For today's song of the day, let's see. What do we want today's song of the day to be? I've not been listening to like any music the last couple of days. So I'm listening to other things. Okay. Song of the day. I mean, in my car, okay, fine. We're gonna make We're gonna make today's song of the day Lost in Paradise, which is the first ending of Jujutsu Kaisen, the anime, because it's such a fun song. The actual ending animation is like the cutest thing ever. Like I love it so much. And I've seen so many like weird TikTok edits of like people taking those animated versions of the characters and like having them dance to different TikTok dances. And it's so funny. Like I don't even have TikTok, but I just watch TikTok compilations of like animations. People are so talented, but specifically that song, Lost in Paradise, is your song of the day. It's a jam. It's a bop. Turn it up really loud in your car when you're driving home. It is fun. The artist? Is that the name of the song? Crunchyroll, help me. Allie featuring Aklo. There. Thank you, Crunchyroll. But, oh my god, the top comment on the video is, this ending is the true meaning of the word vibe. Thanks again to Hellofresh for sponsoring today's video. I very much appreciate it. And if you guys want to check out the links below when I include sponsors, please do. It would be very helpful to me and my channel. I very much appreciate it. So I hope you guys are doing well. I hope you are having a good day, a good week. I hope you have a good weekend. Today is Friday, so I hope you have a good weekend. If you are watching this potentially on a Saturday, I will be streaming on Twitch. We're playing The Sims. We're playing with the new pack, the Cottage Living. I keep wanting to call it the Cottage Core pack. It's not the Cottage Core pack. It's the Cottage Living pack. Hug the llama. Oh, buddy, hug the llama. Hi, Tatiana. Oh, he hugged the llama. Complain about alpacas being too cute? What? But I love it. So definitely come hang out with me on Twitch if it's Saturday. And if you guys want to follow me on any of my other social medias, my Instagram and my Twitter, those are both Abers07 with a 3 instead of an E and a Z instead of an S. So dorkiest username, I know. And if you would like to see more of me on this here website, subscribe and hit the bell notification to get notified when I upload new things, which are usually Tuesdays and Fridays. But thanks for watching, everyone. Hope you have a good day, and I will see you all in my next video. Bye!